Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everybody. Today we are going to take a look at a major series of events that is happening yet again in the sign of Taurus. We have the Venus and Uranus conjunction happening in Taurus at the same time that the Sun conjoins Jupiter, which we call a Jupiter Cazimi. It's happening over the weekend. Mercury is just separating in Taurus from a square with Pluto in Aquarius. We looked at that yesterday. If you want, you can go back and take a look at that one. We won't be talking about that, even though it's just separating today. We are going to be focusing on the combination of these two events in Taurus, alongside of the fact that Mars is also crossing the North Node, if you use the mean node as a form of measurement, North Node of the Moon in the sign of Aries. That also adds some fuel to the fire, you might say. So it's a big weekend, and I'm really excited to take a look at it with you guys. I am going to read a couple of passages from the Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler on Jupiter-Sun conjunctions or connections, and on Venus-Uranus, and just refresh. There's a few little notes that I liked. I thought we would do that. Since we've been over the Taurus, I mean, some people are probably so done with Taurus by this point. As someone who has it in my first house, I feel like, ooh, it's like been Christmas. But yeah, it'll be interesting to start looking ahead at Jupiter in Gemini, a new moon cycle in Gemini. So there's going to be a big shift coming up. Things get really airy too. Jupiter in Gemini will trine Pluto in Aquarius. So things are going to take a turn here pretty soon, but we still do have a number of very important events left here in the sign of Taurus. We're going to look at those that are coming through over the weekend. All right, anyway, that's our agenda for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe before we get into it. It really helps the channel to grow when you take 2 seconds and tap the like button. You can find a transcript of any of my daily talks on my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. If you missed the live webinar last night, you can check that out. We did a Neptune and Aries talk last night. But the big news for today is that the sale on our program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, the Horary class, year 2, all of those programs start in June. Early bird sale ends today. Today is the final day. You have all the way up until midnight. We'll take the sale down on the website tomorrow. Go over to the website, click on the courses page, click on the first year course. Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic starts June 16th. Our Horary class begins the middle of June 2. You can check that out. Year 2, if you're a currently enrolled student, you can take those advanced programs. If you're someone who already has a background in traditional astrology, of course, you can sign up for Horary. I'll be doing more on the topic of Horary as a little promo next week. So after today's video, if you stick around, you'll find a promotional video where I go into depth discussing the curriculum of the program and how it all works. It is 1 year. It's 30 classes on the year. It is all held via live webinar. If you can't attend live, all the recordings are housed on a class website with all the other material you can download and work through it at your own pace. At the bottom, again, you'll find the early bird sales. So you can use these payment plan or the one-time payment to save significantly off the cost of the program. If you want, you can also use need-based tuition. Tell us what works for you within our sliding scale. If you have a fixed or limited income and need a little help, you're experiencing financial hardship, maybe you're a full-time parent, a single parent, whatever the case might be, we are glad to help people make sure that the program is not, it's not pricing people out. We don't want that. So anyway, so again, stick around at the end today. You can learn more about the program. Today is the last day to take advantage of the sale. So be sure that you do that. And I can't wait to see you guys in June. It's a very good time to start studying astrology with Jupiter about to enter Gemini, the sign of Hermes, and trining Pluto in Aquarius. Just good for learning this ancient mandala of interconnected techniques and ideas, symbolically speaking. So anyway, okay, on that note, let us shift gears now, and we're going to start taking a look at these events in Taurus, which are just relentless energy in Taurus. And let's just take a look. So here we can see this is the congregation of 5 planets in the sign of Taurus: Mercury, Venus, Uranus, Sun, and Jupiter. We have, yesterday we looked at Mercury just separating from a square to Pluto. So that is still in the air. You probably experienced that yesterday a bit more than today. So really what we're keying in on is right here. And let's take a look at how this unfolds between today and tomorrow. So here we are, Friday, May 17th. If we go forward one day, there we have Venus having crossed over Uranus by tomorrow, and the Sun, Jupiter is Cazimi at the heart of the Sun tomorrow afternoon. So Venus will technically cross, let's just take this hour by hour. I'm going to eliminate everything in our perspective. All right, we're going to take everything out. Actually, I'm going to keep Mars and I'm going to keep the North Node in. So let's just take a look at how this works like hour by hour. So here we are again, Friday, May 17th. You can see that as we go into the evening, Venus transitions early tomorrow morning, May 18th, Saturday, into the 23rd degree of Taurus, where it then conjoins with Uranus at about 6 in the morning tomorrow morning. Now, at that same time, you'll notice that the Sun and Jupiter are now about 13 minutes of 1 degree apart, which means Jupiter is Cazimi. You have about 15 minutes of 1 degree for the Cazimi for most people measure it that way. So you can see that this is happening simultaneously early tomorrow morning. So tonight into tomorrow morning. Now, if we keep this going, right, we're going to see that the Cazimi from the Sun to Jupiter is about, it's separating by early Sunday morning, and it's fully separated, you could say. We'll give it a full degree just to be generous. So, by Sunday afternoon, the Sun is about, getting to be about a full degree apart from Jupiter. So that's Jupiter's reset moment. By that time, Venus is about 2 degrees separating from Uranus. And then you'll notice that Venus is within 3 degrees of a conjunction with Jupiter. So if we take that forward a little bit, next week, we're going to see that the Sun enters Gemini. And then we have this epic conjunction of the benefics, Venus and Jupiter, at the 29th degree of Taurus. And then shortly after, Venus enters Gemini, and then Jupiter enters Gemini by May 25th. So that's quite a sequence of events that we still have left in Taurus, as you can see, with respect to these planets, not to mention Mercury coming in behind and eventually connecting with Uranus and so on and so forth, and entering Gemini as well, where it is in its own rulership. So we'll be looking at all of that later. But you can also see here that as these events are coming through here, Friday, May 17th, the other little wild card is, I use the mean node. There's 2 different ways of measuring it, true node or mean node. But Mars is crossing the north node of the moon just a couple of degrees off from the north node's placement from the Aries solar eclipse. So you guys have heard me say this like a million times. You're probably so sick of it. But it's true. All of these transits that we've been getting in Taurus and the North Node slowly moving, or Mars slowly moving across the North Node, is reactivating those major events from the month of April, the solar eclipse in Aries and the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, both of which took place in April. So if April felt like the beginning of a new chapter, it would have felt like that. However, it would have also felt marked by some real difficulties and lack of momentum and lack of progress and lack of the ability to see the fruits of your desires or motivations or intentions. And the reason for that was that solar eclipse ruler Mars was with Saturn in Pisces, not in exactly a good place, and it doesn't have any line of sight through aspect from Pisces to Aries. They're in aversion to one another. And then we had Venus, the ruler of Jupiter and Uranus, also in aversion to Taurus from Aries, debilitated. So, I mean, the initial help and support from these planets was not there. Now we have Mars with that North Node in its own sign. Talk about an acceleration of energy. Talk about the support behind that kind of groundbreaking intentionality of Aries in a solar eclipse. I want to move forward. I want to do something new. I want to be independent. I want to move toward greater individuality, risk-taking, courage, bravery. I want to face obstacles or challenges, or it's kind of competitive and daring energy that wants to drive us forward. But now it can. Now there's more support for that development in whatever area of life it happens to land in your birth chart. And you can also look at the Jupiter-Uranus in Taurus signature as the desire to create some kind of opening and revolution, a different way of experiencing, and most likely related to Venusian topics, Taurian topics, earthy, sensual, feminine topics, pleasure, peace, simplicity, joy, abundance. They're trying to create a revolution in relation to those themes, but now we see the support. The Sun went through the conjunction with Uranus. Then it goes through the Cazimi with Jupiter. Jupiter's being reborn as it finishes its work in Taurus, coming off the conjunction with Uranus. Venus is going through the conjunction with Uranus. And then finally, we'll see Venus and Jupiter conjoin at that final degree of Jupiter, of Taurus next week. Amazing. It really is. It's just like this flourishing. So what the broadest thing I want to say, and again, I know I've said it like a bunch in videos recently, is just that all of these events are finally bringing forth the momentum and progress and the more auspicious notes of the solar eclipse in Aries and the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. So think about it that way. Now, for some specifics, I want to share with you two passages from one of my favorite archetypal cookbooks, which is unlike any other kind of astrological cookbook you will ever read. The Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. I just really think he has a way with the archetypes that's special. So I like to read his placements from time to time and promote his book. He's a good guy. He's come and spoken at our school before, and yeah, just really appreciate him. Okay, so we are going to be looking. Sorry, I lost my place. We're going to be looking at Sun Jupiter first. Now, Sun Jupiter is the Cazimi. This is any kind of Sun Jupiter conjunction he writes about here. Again, this is Ren Butler's The Archetypal Universe. He says this: a warm and sunny nature, dramatic flair and enthusiasm for life, outflowing zest and joy, goodwill and generosity. So those are all the brightest significations of Jupiter. You just get this kind of warm, abundant, big, confident expression of solar energy. It's like it gets magnified and expanded through the connection with Jupiter. However, the dark side would be tendencies toward arrogance and inflation, grandiosity and self-importance, ethical blind spots, and attitudes of entitlement. So Sun Jupiter could be like someone who's a little high on themselves, right? So we can watch for those things in ourselves, in the world around us. We may run into a Sun Jupiter figure this weekend. Remember, one of the things we said in a video a while back when we were talking about this transit, maybe in the month ahead or something like that, was that this Sun Jupiter conjunction can also bring up the death and sort of rebirth of solar figures in our lives, father karma, and a sort of releasing or liberating of stuck energy with respect to various solar people in our lives, leaders, bosses, parents, especially fathers. Anyhow, a sense of happy well-being, buoyant optimism, becoming self-confident, exuberant, enthusiastic, the joy of living, the breath of life, feelings of growth and health, saving grace, welcome, O life, an expansive and creative way of expressing oneself, feelings of recognition and success, a flair for the dramatic, feelings of goodwill and generosity, positive liberal values, urges toward cooperation, trust and honesty, magnanimous and benevolent style. See how it just, you get something, it almost feels like with Sun Jupiter, it's a little bit like Jupiter and Leo. That's a Jupiter-Sun combination as well. An interest in other cultures, participation in the social and cultural worlds, philosophical pursuits, the positive side of the masculine principle, good and admirable fathering. And that's why it can be connected to a transformation of paternal karma, because there's almost like a very positive signature here of something that can grow and be seeded relative to the topic of fathers or fathering, which sometimes means something also will be let go of. For example, you can be very, very obvious if you have a very domineering, arrogant, proud, boastful type of father, or you find some of those qualities within yourself and you're reflecting on, oh, wow, I need to step out and let my kids step into the light a little bit more, something like that, Shadow qualities, tendency toward pride and egotism, grandiosity and self-importance, self-centered and self-righteous attitudes, being full of oneself, a habit of preaching down to others, unrealistic and impractical behaviors, excess and overextension, extravagance and self-indulgence. So you get all of that kind of, it's sort of like someone who's, like I think of do you remember Scrooge McDuck? And he would dive into that tower full of coins and just like swim around, and he was so full of himself and full of his money and full of his wealth. That can be Jupiter Sun-like as well. I think it's interesting that in a section called Nature and the Arts, he says the life-giving nature of the sun, the glorious long days of summer and bright sunshine. So, and then archetypes, good-hearted heroes, sun-warmed golden beaches. So yeah, I think these are really wonderful significations and reminders. Remember that broadly speaking, we're also getting a reset of Jupiter. Jupiter is dying and being reborn, which means that the Jupiter principle, when it comes to questions of self-esteem, like, do I have a healthy self-esteem, or am I overly confident, or do I not believe in myself? Like, do I go one direction or the other? Resetting your Jupiter relationship with Jupiter right now might be important to get a more accurate sense of your self-worth. No, you are special. You are beautiful. And also curbing any kind of excessiveness. Yeah, but you're not more special than anyone else. You're just you're also just like a speck of sand on the beach kind of thing. And it doesn't diminish your beauty and self-importance either. So finding that right relationship with what makes you strong, confident, beautiful, proud, wonderful, uh, good moment to reflect on that. The other thing is that this is just a moment of shining. You may notice things like promotion or feelings of confidence or accomplishment, and just the sense that you're reordering your life in some way right now, and there's a sense of momentum and happiness that accompanies a new vision for your life, which is common when the sun and Jupiter conjoin, and you're getting that life energy infused into Jupiter at a seeding point. It's like, here's the new image, here's the new ideal that will grant some larger sense of coherence and order to my life, morally, philosophically. That's Jupiter. So watch for this kind of resetting of Jupiter. That's the point. Now, part two, we have Venus and Uranus. Let's look at that. I love, of course, I've read many times this little passage on Venus-Uranus, but it's a good one. We'll return to it. Here it is. Relationship breakthroughs. This is Venus-Uranus and Taurus conjoining over the weekend as well. Relationship breakthroughs, a rebirth of love and friendship, feelings of romantic electricity and excitement, a colorful and eccentric sense of style, social sparkle, and fun. Those are all the positive sides. By the way, if you're really interested in more on the topic of Uranus and Venus because it's on your mind right now, you can go to the shop page at Nightlight and pick up the recent talk I did on Uranus in love, where we look at Uranus in relation to Venus, the seventh house, by transit or natally. And we spoke at length about the connection between Uranus and Venus. On the dark side, romantic and social restlessness, cravings for sexual freedom, which prevent a deeper intimacy, disruptive affairs and triangle situations, sudden attractions without substance, aesthetic disharmony. As someone who just went through a Uranus to Venus square, I started taking guitar lessons again and started prioritizing the creative side of my life. Going to some Grateful Dead concerts with my wife. She got me into the Grateful Dead. Started playing my guitar a lot again. And from all of that came the impetus to write a new book, which I'm about halfway through right now. Uranus to Venus can awaken the need for creative self-expression, and connection to art and beauty and creativity can just be so it can be so intoxicating. And it's like, I remember the feeling when it was first crossing and hitting the square to my natal Venus, Uranus and Taurus recently, and it was like I felt possessed by the need to write and play music. And of course, like it settled down after a little bit, but I mean, it was just demanding. Like, you must be creative right now. Similarly, when it comes to fashion or tattoos or hair or cosmetic procedures, it's like there's this desire to shift the way we look or something about our appearance. You might feel experimental in love and sex. It can spark awakenings within existing relationships. It doesn't have to just destroy them. Like I've shared with you guys many times, one of the biggest, most amazing things that came was that my wife and I got back to all of our morning spiritual routines together that we had prior to having kids, which had just kind of gone by the wayside because of how overwhelming kids are. And you guys who have kids know. And all of a sudden it was like, I was just like, we have space and time to get back to those things. How is it even possible that I've forgotten how wonderful those practices were that we had a while back, and so let's get back to them. So we got back to them, and I'll tell you, like, again, same thing. It's just a feeling of connectedness. Let's awaken something that has the fire of that connection has died down because, life has gone on and you've had kids and stuff. Uranus in existing relationships can do wonders to awaken and deepen and kind of activate the connection. It's like sometimes it may result in breaking up a relationship, but many people get scared about that. And I talked about this at length in the webinar that I just did on Uranus and love, where I've seen so many clients over the year for whom their existing relationships become the ground of revolution, not that it breaks apart the relationship. That's kind of a disaster thing. It's like disaster thinking invading the way we think about an aspect. Now, there are ways in which Uranus and Venus can mean that you need to break free in relationships where there is some lack of freedom or creativity, and if your partner isn't willing to do that awakening with you, now, well, then things might need to change, but I think it's a transit with Venus and Uranus, especially if it's activating right now in like the early 20s of fixed signs in your charts, hitting planets by aspect in those degrees. You may be feeling this in a very strong way, compared to the rest of us who don't have it aspecting anything. But Venus and Uranus is a kind of creative, emancipatory, liberating kind of energy, especially with respect to creativity, love, relationships, sex, and so forth. However, remember that this is also connected to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that just happened. And so, broadly speaking, Venus is coming through and reactivating a much bigger and broader, all-encompassing sense of revolution that we're trying to create around that Taurian place in our lives. Again, broadly speaking, Taurus has to do with our life as the feeling of peace, abundance, joy, ease, simplicity, luxury, sensual gratification. Do we have a healthy relationship with that, with our bodies, with health, with well-being, with pleasure? And there's the need for a really significant paradigm shift in that area of our lives. And so Venus is doubling down on that as she hits Uranus right now, which is, again, the same thing that we have with the Sun and Jupiter, just kind of a reactivation of all of these things. Remember, all of this we're getting the volume cranked up on all of these aspects by virtue of the fact that Mars is also with the North Node near the solar eclipse point. So the desire to initiate, to take action, to move forward boldly, assertively, and with a strong sense of individual strength and potency behind everything right now is also at work and making it all a little spicier. But it's an exciting series of transits. Big weekend, kind of like we're moving toward the very last moments of this whole Taurian blossoming phase that we've been in for a while now, and that everything has been building up toward. So I'd love to hear your stories. Before I sign off, if you have a story to share, use the hashtag grabbed or email us your story, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. One of the ancient names for the planets were grahas or grabbers. They show up in our lives. If we're not paying attention, they grab us. We are moving around like puppets on a string. With astrology in our lives, we become aware of the planets in our lives. And the double meaning of the word graha, to grab, is also to grasp or to understand. And so when we notice the planets grabbing us, we grasp what they're saying, what they're doing. We become wiser, more illumined. And so that's the whole point of the series, is to share those stories. How did the planets grab me, and how did I come to understand? So if you email us your story, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com, or use the hashtag grab in the comment section. Just don't share anything that you don't mind us using in a future storytelling episode. All right, when I sign off, you're going to see an additional video tagged onto the end where I tell you about the upcoming program. First year program in Hellenistic astrology begins on June 16th. Early bird sale ends today. So this is your last day to use that. Need-based tuition is available up to the start of class. If you're on the fence and you think you might need help, that's fine. The good news about the upcoming program, I will say, is that the Jupiter-Pluto connection in air signs is fantastic for studying astrology. So a particularly auspicious transit around this particular class. Over the course of 14 years, occasionally classes line up like that, and I'll mention it when they do, but it's not every time. So that's not me just being generic about it. Anyway, all right, that's it for today. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, my year 1 course in Ancient Hellenistic Astrology that begins on June 16th. If you'd like to learn more about it, of course, you can always do some digging and looking at the course page on your own. I'll take you over there right now and walk you through it. But if you want to, you can go over yourself and look. Nightlightastrology.com is the website. Click on the courses tab and go to the first year course. This is the one that begins on June 16th, the perfect place to start for people who would like to learn more about natal astrology from the Hellenistic point of view. So this is a one-year course in Hellenistic astrology, which is the oldest form of astrology, and it is the form from which all subsequent forms of astrology come from. It shares a lot in its roots with ancient Indian astrology. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what characterizes Hellenistic astrology, but just to familiarize you with this page, when you go to the first year course page and scroll down, you can learn more about everything that's included in the course. Some of the main features include 30 classes on the year. These classes are spread out through units of curriculum. And in between the major units of curriculum, we have breakout study sessions led by our tutoring staff. We also have an interactive group forum discussion that is staffed with tutors year round. You always get your questions answered within 24 hours. So there's a lot of support built into the program as we work our way through the curriculum. We also have recommended reading, listening, optional quizzes, flashcards, bonus lectures, more than you could possibly read in a year, honestly. So we just have a large and long biography and sort of library of suggested bonus content that will fill in blanks and also supplement and deepen the material that we are studying. You get lifetime access to all the recordings. If you cannot attend the webinars live, they meet on the weekends, but if you can't attend them live, then you are welcome to follow along with the recordings, which are made available to you on the class website. So this class meets on Sundays from noon Central to 2 p.m. Central, or 1 Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern time. And you might translate that, I guess, if you're on the West Coast, it would be 10 a.m. to noon Pacific time. During the program, in addition to working our way through all of the major curriculum, the major foundational elements of Hellenistic astrology, we place a strong emphasis on preparing ourselves to read charts for other people. Whether this is a hobby for you or something that you are endeavoring to practice professionally, the course is built for people who are really there for a lot of different reasons. This is your hobby. This is your passion. You hope to do this for really no one other than yourself, or maybe friends or family, or someone who really decides they want to start a practice. You can take this class at whatever level of interest or depth that you want because of the amount of material that we make available to you inside and outside of class. You always have access to the program too, so you can always take it at your own pace. You can attend live, follow along with the recordings, some combination of both. And then the breakout study sessions are really helpful in addition to our interactive group forum discussion. You can always ask us questions. You can email me anytime with questions. So we have a lot of support in place. Now, the curriculum, we move through the foundational elements of ancient astrology. You may look at the curriculum and say, well, I know something about these things already, but not really, not unless you've studied Hellenistic astrology, because the way that ancient astrologers talked about houses, signs, planets, aspects, essential dignities, chart delineation is radically different from what most people learn when they start studying modern astrology. The reason for that is that it's only been in the past couple of decades that we have finally had access to the vast majority of ancient texts on Hellenistic astrology. We were literally missing the bulk of our ancient tradition. So the kind of rebirth or reawakening of ancient astrology is really new, which makes this very exciting because everything you've learned in modern astrology is probably coming from the lens of what is called psychological astrology, which is a way of looking at the birth chart in terms of the planet, signs, houses, and the way in which they may relate to your psychological makeup or profile. In this way, birth charts are a little bit like an elaborate Myers-Briggs. So you have the personality profiling, which is the way that most people look at planets, houses, and signs. You'll notice my Mars, my Venus, and they think of them as aspects or dimensions of your character and personality. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we utilize much of the same language, and we certainly have that approach available to us in this program because ancient astrologers also looked at the chart in terms of psychological makeup. However, one of the main distinctions between modern astrology and ancient astrology is the emphasis that ancient astrologers placed on prediction. They looked at the chart in terms of a field of karma that defines the native or the individual's fate or destiny. And so we look at houses, signs, planets, aspects as a way of understanding what patterns, themes, and topics are going to be most prevalent and at what times, because they also had a very elaborate system of timing techniques. The year one program is all about learning to read the birth chart and understanding the ancient Hermetic sort of Platonic Pythagorean philosophy that was behind the establishment of all of the doctrines and teachings of astrology itself. So it's really about understanding where everything comes from. It's the why behind everything that greatly empowers people when they're learning astrology. It is not nearly the same when you just study lists of adjectives and descriptions for houses, signs, planets, aspects. We want to understand why. Why do we do these things at all? Where did it all come from? And when you understand that, then you have something like a skeleton key by means of which you can access your own creativity, your own intuition, rather than being told, just play these notes in this order and it will sound good. You're learning to improvise. Which, could anyone ever want to play? Why would you want to play an instrument if someone told you, well, here's how to play this, play this, play that, and you never learned how to play something of your own, or you never learned how to use the scales in ways that were magical and pertain to your own genie, your own genius. So when we study ancient astrology, one of the main things we're doing is we're taking people beyond anything that they think they've learned about houses, signs, planets, aspects, and we're teaching them where it all came from. And once you have that, then you're really cooking with fire. You have a magical, intuitive capacity that is very rare and precious in astrology. So anyway, we move through a lot of different elements, but not in the way that you've ever learned them before. And that's a really important distinction. So anyway, after all of that has been said, in each unit, we spend, maybe up to 10 hours on houses. And then we have a breakout study session, and then we have reading and bonus material. So when we talk about houses in this class, you are learning where the concept of a house ever came from in the first place, what it is, how it works, and how it's different from a sign. You're also going to unlearn and break a lot of bad habits, because not by any intentional ignorance, but modern astrology, being bereft of its ancient textual tradition, has been teaching a lot of things that are just not in line with where the actual theoretical foundations of astrology come from. So you're also going to break some bad habits, which is really good for people who maybe know a little bit about astrology already, but are seeking to clarify and understand theory in the context of the 2,000-year history of astrology. So anyway, this class is going to prepare you to read birth charts for other people. But then by the end, one of the great things about the program is that the way we do that is not just by pumping you full of theory and history and philosophy. We are also, in the last portion of the program, inviting live clients into the class. And that's great, because when we have live clients come in, you're going to see me read from them using the theory and techniques that we've been studying. And you're going to see how they can be applied artfully, as well as, giving you some tools and methods and techniques to use to set you up for success. Seeing live astrology practice while studying it is the best way to learn. So the last portion of the program, we turn toward that hands-on approach. Anyway, so that's a bit about the program. If you have any questions you want to ask, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We're happy to answer any questions you have whatsoever. I also want to point people to the payment options at the bottom. Early bird payment saves you $500 off. That is a great way to save. The payment plan is breaking the tuition into 12 monthly installments. If that works better for you, no worries, you can do that. And then need-based tuition. We, for many, many years now, dating back to 2010 when I started teaching astrology, I've always had some kind of sliding scale option available for people when studying astrology. Sacred science like this should be accessible to people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds. So we pride ourselves on making sure that there is tuition assistance available, so that if your budget doesn't match with the payment price that we ask for, and that's an honest assessment that we trust you to make, that you can take advantage of the tuition assistance and set your price within a sliding scale that we provide for your monthly tuition for 12 months through the program. So please feel free to apply for that if it makes sense to you. We don't want people hurting themselves or overextending themselves. A price that fits your budget is available through the need-based tuition. We just ask that you apply early, because we do fill up sometimes. So anyway, that is it. I hope that you will consider studying with us, and thanks for taking time to learn more about the program. See you later.